So we are absolutely honored to have Blue Bomber legend, Canadian Football League Hall of Famer, James Murphy joining us today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing so good. If I was doing any better, I'll be sugar. But no, I'm doing absolutely good and fantastic for old guy.
Yeah. Did you get to catch any of the Bomber action this weekend?
I did. I did. I pretty much thought it would go that way, having resting players for the last 3 weeks. I thought there might be even a little colder. The weather would be a little colder. But as you guys know and seen, good teams find a way to win. And, I gonna wait and reserve any crowning just yet. But that was just an absolute pleasure to watch. These guys, they deserve that win because they never gave up. And I guess we'll talk about it a little later on when we're talking about comparing, this team against the era of the 80s. But I thought it was a fantastic game defensively, offensively, and just that desire to win. It was just a true pleasure to watch.
Yeah, and you talk about those 80s teams and how physical they are. And of course, on our end as fans, we have that energy. There's that same energy built in the city of Winnipeg. So let's talk about your career in Winnipeg. What was your journey from Florida to the CFL? How'd you get here?
Well, that's a good question. I by way of Utah State University, actually, I was originally from Florida. Got a 4-year scholarship to Utah State. My college coach, Bruce Snyder at the time, came down to DeLand High in Florida, Central Florida, to recruit me. Back at in high school, I played against some great athletes down there. One guy you probably remember was an outstanding baseball player by the name of Tim Raines. Played for Montreal for years.
Oh, wow.
So his community was just 10, 12 miles down the street, down the road. And but he was an outstanding football player. I remember watching Chris Collinsworth right in high school. I played against Collinsworth.
Holy cow.
So it was just a great, growing up in Central Florida. University of Florida is about 90 miles. Florida State, not that far. So it was. I got a chance to watch some great football. And I had a desire to lead the state of Florida. And I was fortunate enough to have a good high school career, not a great, but a good one. We had 11 guys from our high school got scholarships. And me and a buddy of mine chose Utah State. University of Miami recruited me, but they wanted the quarterback. They told me if the quarterback signed, they'll take me. And Utah State highly recruited me. So I ended up going up to Utah State, playing in an offense where we threw the ball, a pro-type offense. I caught a lot of football. That's where I really honed my skills, was at Utah State. Second leading receiver in the nation my junior year, and third leading receiver in the nation of all colleges my fourth year. It was kind of ironic coming out of Utah State, is because 18, 19-year-old kid, my father had just passed away, and I decided that I'm going to forego my redshirt year. As I look back on it now, might not have been the smartest thing to do, but I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I decided that I was going to make myself eligible for the draft, the 1981 NFL draft. Something I probably, if I'd have waited around another year, I probably could have would have got drafted higher. Scouts came up and they was telling me that Detroit Lions said, "Oh yeah, we're going to take you in the 3rd round." They said, "Well, James, we like you. You're a diamond in the rough." A diamond in a rough. What is a diamond in a rough? I'm a diamond and I'm rough. I mean, I'm 18, 19 years old. But so I don't really know what that meaning was, but I thought it was pretty good. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. Just about that time before the draft, about a couple, 3 months before the draft, my agent phoned me up and said, hey, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are having a tryout camp down in Southern California in Harborview College, community college. You want to come down? Yeah, sure, I'll go come down and see what I can do. You know, I'm the third leading receiver in the nation. I'm waiting on the NFL draft. Sure, I'll come down. So I went down there, and me and a couple other buddies, we go out and we're working out. Man, I'm running by these guys left and right because a lot of these guys are off the street looking to get a contract, a CFL contract. Yeah. And I already know that I'm probably going to be going to the NFL. I'm not sure, right? I'm just waiting on the draft. So after the camp was over, Paul Robson, he comes up to me and he says, James, we want to sign you to a contract. We'll give you $5,000 and sign you to, I think it was about $50,000 contract. Man, you know, I wasn't a poor guy, but I had that kind of money, right? So yeah. I turned him down. I said, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson, I really appreciate the offer. However, I think I want to see if I can play in the National Football League. He said, okay, James, okay, all right. So I go back to Utah and finish up school for the year, and draft came around in April. First day come around, no call. Second day comes around and get a call from the Minnesota Vikings. They say, yeah, Mr. Murphy, we drafted you in the 10th round. Oh, okay. That's all I wanted was an opportunity. So I go to training camp, and one of the first people that I noticed is Bud Grant. Like I knew who Bud Grant was because I grew up in Florida, watching Miami, and Miami was my team because I was on a team back in the day. So Miami and the Vikings, it was always head to head. But before I should say that, let me just add this. Growing up in Florida, Miami was my team. I hated the Vikings. I hated the Vikings with a passion. The purple people eaters. Yeah. Right? And so I got the call from the Vikings. I mean, I'm not overwhelmed. I'm happy, but I'm not. It's not something that just lifts me over the top. But anyway, okay, they drafted me. There's nothing I can do about it. So I show up in Mankato State, and I see the silver fox walking around. When I'm walking, I'm looking at this guy. I'm just amazed because I watched this man, coach Super Bowls, and there's Ahmad Rashad, there's Sammy White, all of these stars that I admired. Man, I'm just overwhelmed. So I go out to camp, have a very good camp, catching the ball, running by people, having a good camp. And I thought things were working out. But one day I'm standing, I'm practicing, and I see Bud Grant talking to this guy. He's a black guy, but I don't know who he is. But I hear Ahmad Rashad saying, "Whoa, Bud over talking to Leo Lewis. He's over talking to Leo Lewis." I have no idea who Leo Lewis is, right? Yeah. So I'm competing against Leo Lewis Jr. for that next spot. And Bud is talking to his dad. Yeah. So a couple of days later, I get the call in the Bud's office that they released me. Okay, well, okay. Very disappointed. Yeah. So I said, I called my agent up and said, can you call Winnipeg? And so he phoned up Winnipeg, and Winnipeg said, yeah, we'll bring him up. This was in September. So I come up to Winnipeg. I'm flying into Winnipeg. I'm looking around because I've never been to Canada before. I'm looking around like, where the igloos at? I'm serious. I heard of some of the prominent great Lauren Green, Monty Hall, Burton Cummins. I heard these guys on the radio, but I never really had an idea of what it would look like in Canada because I grew up in the southern United States. I mean, we taught history, but it was European history, Russian history, our adversaries. Canada wasn't a threat to us. They were like our little brother. Yeah. So there was never really a whole bunch of history, especially living in the southern United States. But anyway, I come up and I have a good little workout, and I'm still not happy. And I said that Bombs told me, Ray Yark was the head coach. And he said, well, James, this was in September. It was getting closer to the playoff. We want to sign you for next year. So you know what? No, you know what? I'm going to go back and see if I can play in the NFL. So I go back down, and I ended up signing with Kansas City Chiefs. And there's a story to that as well. Because when I go home back to Florida, my agent said, okay, I got a team for you, Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to fly you to Kansas City in the morning, be at the airport. Get to the airport, go on the plane. I'm heading to Kansas City. There's a layover in Atlanta. So as the plane is going into Atlanta, they say over the intercom there, PA system, James Murphy, could you stay on the plane? There's so and so from the Atlanta Falcons want to talk to you. I'm like, what? I'm supposed to be going to Kansas City. So this general manager comes in and says, yeah, well, we talked to your agent and we want to sign you. We're going to take you over here to the Falcons training camp. Oh, okay. So I go and I'm there for 2 weeks. A player get hurt, so they release me. Oh, I can't believe it. So I go back to Florida and get another call the next day and say, well, Kansas City still want to try you out. Martin Levy was a head coach. So I fly to Kansas City, I run a 4.340, and so the Chiefs end up signing me. Oh, okay, right. So I finally found me home. So I was there for about a year and a half, sixth leading kickoff return guy in the league, had a pretty good special teams player. I thought I could play wide receiver, but I was still young. I wasn't quite there yet. And but they ended up releasing me in training camp the next year. They had drafted the #1 draft pick, and they released me. But I said to myself, to my wife, I'm sick of the politics, right? I'm just sick of the politics. I'm not a prototype receiver. And back in the day, they wanted 6'2", 6'4" receivers, right? And so I decided, I'm going to go back up to Winnipeg and I'm going to sign, and this is where I want to play. So I ended up, Paul Robson again said, yep, come on back, James, come on back. So I flew back and I signed with the Bombers in late October, but I didn't end up playing until September of 1982. My first game against the Calgary Stampeders, Dieter Brock threw me my first touchdown pass, and of course the rest is history. But it was that was I guess what you call it. Just a desire to not to give up, right? They could have easily broken my spirit, easily broken my will, and it happens so much in the CFL. Now, it wasn't in professional sports, right? And I think it made me a better person, and the type of person that when you have a dream, you got to follow that dream.
Yes.
Before you went to Florida there for that tryout, with the Bomber or the CFL, the Bombers, had you heard about the CFL before, or even Winnipeg?
Well, yes, because at Utah State there was Canadians on the team, and they was getting drafted. Rob Smith. There was we have trying to think of it's been so long ago. He's from Kelowna, BC. He was a linebacker, Ken Shinconi. I don't know if you guys remember that name, but he was Canadian and he was drafted. And so I heard of it. Actually, the Hamilton Tiger Cats sent me a couple of letters my senior year in college, but I didn't know much about it. And but when I did learn more about it, and especially when I came up here after that first time, and I picked up a program guide or one of the Bomber guides, right? And I looked and I saw one of the things that really made me want to play here and stay here was when I saw that Bud Grant had played here, because I didn't know until I looked at that guy. Oh, Bud Grant was a star here. Leo Lewis was a star here. And then I heard somebody say Leo Lewis was his favorite player. Then I put it all together, right? And but it was kind of fate, it's just fate. And so it was quite the journey and quite the lesson. And like I said, when I saw Bud Grant, because at one time he was all-time leading receiver. And so when I saw his name in that book, I said, I'm gonna break his record. And that was a goal of mine to break his record. And Joe Poplawski ended up breaking it. And of course I ended up breaking both of those guys' record.
Speaking of that game on Sunday there, we were there. It was a very cold, frigid December day. I mean, that was the first December game played, a football game outside in Winnipeg. Like, you know, not probably the greatest idea, but hey, it had to happen. So what was it? Did you ever, well, I'm sure you did, but do you remember a game that was just as cold for you, playing in the playoffs or at Winnipeg Stadium? And what was it like playing in that stadium in the cold?
Well, I think the coldest game we probably played in, I don't know how old you guys would have been in 1984. But 1984, yeah, that was probably like minus 17 wind chill factors around minus 30. And a good story for that game was that we had some smart people that understood that time of year and the type of conditions we're going to be playing in. So prepare yourself with the proper equipment. And I don't know if you guys heard the story that Cal, obviously playing in coaching in Edmonton, he knew some tricks of the trade. So we ended up bringing broom ball shoes for all the players. Right? I know you guys probably heard that story, and it worked out great. I mean, they were giving me these broom ball shoes. I'm like, what? Broom ball shoes? I have no idea what broom ball shoes are. But they ended up, and they didn't give you much support, so we ended up getting spatted. But and it worked out for us because those guys were slipping and sliding all over the place, and we were able to maintain some really good traction and footing to, I think, gave us a bit of an advantage. But yeah, that was the coldest. But I also remember even practicing up to that week, and Cal would he made the Canadian receivers take their gloves off, like Rick Howes and Joe Poplawski. And he said, the American players, you guys, okay, you Canadians, you're not wearing any gloves. And, I'm like, I got my gloves.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was cool. And I sort of admired those guys the other day. Like you said, Benny, because I was sitting in my living room there looking out the window and could hear that wind howling, right? The snow blowing. And I thought it would be a bigger factor than what it was. And it appeared to be, you know, just another Sunday football game for those guys. So I really admire them the way they handled that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You talk about weather being almost like another opponent on the field, but real opponents, who was like a DB or a couple DBs who you felt you had a tough time, or you never were looking forward to going toe to toe with them, or was there any that you had no problem with?
Oh yeah. Well, there was a couple of guys that gave me nightmares. There was a couple of guys where I couldn't sleep the whole week because I know I got to have my stuff together. And one of them was Terry Irving for the Calgary Stampeders back in 1982. This is when DBs were DBs. They backpedal. They didn't turn, right? And run. They had great techniques. But Terry was about 6'3", 6'4", and this guy can cover. He talked trash, and he was just a physical. And I heard James West talk about the HBCUs. How's it called? Yes, and I think he played at one of those schools, and he was just a tough guy. Man, I'm telling you guys, he kept me up thinking about, you know, all of my techniques, what I have to do to be able to beat this guy. And I was competitive against him, but man, it was him, Harry Skipper he played for Montreal and he played for Saskatchewan, and those guys in Edmonton, Joe Holloman, man, it was that was the back in the day where this pass interference rule, man, that's a joke.
It exist.
It didn't exist pretty much, but no, it was some really good physical battles back in the day, and it was. I mean, you have to be on your game, and back then as well. You know, guys wasn't making a whole lot of money. There wasn't a whole lot of incentive for a DB to get interception, or for me, a receiver catching passes. Only people that got incentives was usually the quarterbacks, right? Or if your name's Tom Clemens or Adela Brock. Mm-hmm. So we played for the love of the game, right? Guys was out there trying to take your head off. Guys was out there talking about your mama. They was trying to get any kind of edge that they could to be able to win that game. And if you're gonna talk about my mama, we gonna have a battle going on. And most of the time it was. And I tell you, and just going into the meetings, you know, after a game, watching game film was again, you would get criticized. You would get picked on if you're not doing your assignment, right? If you're loafing. So it was a different time back then, but you know, the game has changed for a reason, and I get it, right? For the safety of the player, right? You know, there's reduced head injuries, right? The lawsuits. So I get it. I get it where they have all these rules and new penalties, but it's just a different time, a different era.
You're speaking of all these opposing DBs that you played up against, but those Bombers Ds in the 80s were pretty good too. What was it like going up in practice against the likes of Rod Hill, Ken Haley, Les Brown, even Tyrone Jones and James West? Did those guys help you to become a better receiver also?
Well, absolutely. We competed in practice every day. David Shaw, like I say, Haley, you know, even Tyrone Jones. I remember one day Tyrone, he want to step out there after practice and tell me he can cover me. He can cover me? What do you mean you can cover me? What? Okay, I cover you 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5. What? Oh, no. I go to the quarterback. Okay, let's line this sucker up. First one, ran by him. Third one, in route, caught it. Third one, I did some move on him and the gun caught it. And he twisted his ankle. Right? I was like, whoa. And but that's how competitive we were in practice. Les Brown, the Scott Flagel, even the strong safeties and the free safety, we would get involved. But then we'd tone it down. We would tone it down when it get closer to game time because, you know, we loved each other. We worked for each other. We laughed and we enjoyed being around each other. But we was very competitive, and I think that was one of the factors in making us such a great team.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm gonna throw some numbers at you. 116, 1,746, 12. 116 receptions, 1,746 yards, 12 TDs in 1986.
Not bad.
Yeah, tell us about that magical season, the MVP season.
Man, that was an unbelievable season. An unbelievable season. I remember going home in 1985 because I broke my ankle or sprained my ankle and didn't break it. It was just a bad sprain. So I didn't really end up finishing up the year. And I said to myself that I'm going to be the most valuable player in this league. I'm going to be the best receiver in this league next year. And I was just talking to myself. So I go back to Utah, and I was living in Utah at the time. And I decided I'm going to get mentally prepared for the next season. So I went to this guy. He's a hypnosis, and he taught me how to do self-hypnosis to be able to. He gave me a mantra to focus every day. James, when you get up, I want you to go and say this mantra every day, and I did it every day religiously. I would go to the stadium. I would catch footballs. People don't realize I was very strong. I can bench press over 350 pounds, right? Wow. And I learned that in high school because we had the state weightlifting team in the state of Florida. Not only that, we had over $1 million worth of Nautilus equipment when the Nautilus first came out, right? Dick Bucker, all these guys was always down to my high school. So I knew that I had to be strong. And people really don't realize how strong. I played with speed and I played with power. And people, they looked at my size and I think they kind of underestimated my strength. but I had to be strong to be able to go across the middle, be able to pluck that ball out of the air. One of my mottos was catch it and pay for it, right? When the ball is thrown, it belonged to us. Go up and get it. Run on the sideline pattern, catch the ball, because the referee would never call you in bounds if you drop it. These are the affirmations I used to tell myself as I fall asleep, like over and over and over and over again. And it became a part of my, just part of me. And so, and to be able to get at that level in 1986, I think that's what it was for me. And I already had a strong faith in God. And so I put that together, and I think it just gave me that much more confidence, not arrogance, just confident to be able to want to be the best, play for other people, and play for my teammates. And I think I don't know, that I tell you that it was just something about 1986 where I felt so good, and I think it's just all those just being focused, and was a part of that.
James West mentioned last week that that 87 team was probably one of you guys' better teams that didn't end up winning the Grey Cup. And I was actually remember being at the East Final in 87. It was cold that day too.
Yeah.
And expecting an easy victory, and it didn't happen. You guys ended up losing. So do you kind of agree with that? Because he also said 88 was not as good, but you guys ended up winning the Grey Cup there. So if you can touch on that a little bit.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Even when you just brought it up again, that sinking feeling in my stomach that just kind of came back, because that was a year that we had the total package. I mean, offensively, defensively, quarterback, special teams. We had the total package. I believe we were 12-6, just dominating the East, I believe, because the Montreal Alouettes had folded, so they moved us from the West to the East, and a lot of the fans in the East was upset, disappointed, but it worked out to our advantage. And like James West said, I think we got caught up with a lot of the cockiness and thought we was better than what we actually didn't play up to our potential. And like he said, we had a lot of plans for after party, right? I remember stopping by the LC and picking up a bottle of champagne. So, oh yeah, I got the champagne ready, put it on ice. When I get home, oh boy, we're gonna celebrate. Man, by the second quarter, third quarter roll around, I could just thinking to myself, why the hell did I go and pick up a bottle of champagne for? Right? You start having these thoughts.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, the game's over. Got your butt kicked. I got home. I took that bottle and I poured it down in the sink. Because I would have never been able to enjoy it. I just poured it down the sink, and it's been a lesson for me. Right, it's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. I think it was a lesson for all of us, because like Wes and you guys know, that next year, although we were not a 9 team, we lost Tom Clemens, we lost a lot of players, but the rich fiber and Winnipeg tradition was still there. It was still there. We just needed to just come together at the right time, and we did. And we was able to make some plays and win a Grey Cup again. And that's why for Sunday, I'm just so scared that these guys, I'm not scared, but I just, because I think these guys get it. I think they get it, that they got to show up and play. All odds are against them, because they kicked Hamilton butt last year, and the Grey Cup game is in Hamilton. Man, you got to be focused, because Hamilton wants this game, and that's what it's going to come down to. Who won it the most? But I think the Bombers, I think they're just too good. They're a well-coached team, from the management to the top to the bottom. And I don't think players are going to be going out during the week, partying and, enjoying the festivities. No. We're here for business. And I think if they maintain that attitude, they'll be bringing the cup back to Winnipeg.
Yeah, they are a formidable team. Like we haven't seen a team this strong in Winnipeg since the 80s and then
Well,
early 90s.
and I was just running this by you guys. They remind me of the 1984 team. And there's a resemblance, especially for the receivers. And I kind of going through this receivers, the resemblance, like Drew Watarski, could be Poplowski, Nick Dembski, Rick House, Darwin Adams, Jeff Boyd, and Kenny Lawyer. It can be me, right? So I kind of looked at those guys, and then you got the running backs. You got Andrews, Willa Reeves, right? And Sean Kehoe would be Mike Miller. So, and Clemens, pretty much Zach Calaris. They're very similar to that 1984 team. And I was just thinking about that today, and I'm looking, like, oh my goodness, these guys really remind us of that 84 team. So let's just hope they go out and do what the 84 team did.
Yeah. We look at that roster, and there are some. You mentioned Andrew Harris, definite future Hall of Famer. Maybe even someone like Willie Jefferson, future Hall of Famer. What was it like when you got the call to be inducted into the CFL Hall of Fame, and you were able to go to Hamilton, one of Winnipeg Blue Bombers' favorite spots to go? What was that whole experience like for you?
It was special. It was special. It was very special. And I think what made it even that much more special is my mom passed away that year, a couple of months before, and I was hoping she can hang on to be there. So my brothers and my sisters, my family in Michigan, they all showed up, and when I got there, they gave me a real nice big painting or drawing of my mother. Man, and I just broke down because I know that she was looking down on me, and because I think she was just so proud of me, you know, a young Black man growing up in the 60s and 70s in Florida. You know, I didn't really understand the ripple effect of the civil rights movements or the sit-in movements. All of these different types of movement was for me to be able to have equal rights, to be able to go to college. For me, I didn't know the difference. I was just a little kid, right? We had all the food I want. My mom provided clothes, and I didn't know that, you know, there's a system that was against me, a Black kid, my brothers and my sisters. And so I know that she was just so proud to see that I was able to overcome those barriers and be able to, you know, just the family name, and just, it was special. Man, I tell you, it was quite special.
Yeah.
So in your time here, you played with a bunch of QBs in Winnipeg in the 80s. Who was your favorite one to play with, and who helped you out the most?
That's a good question. Man, I tell you, playing with Dieter Brock was when I first got here, because I could run, and I could be 40, 45, 50 yards down the field, and he would just sling it. And I felt like with him, like a golden retriever chasing a stick, right? You throw it, there you go get it. And I would go get it. I was just, man, it was just, in practice, it was just, man, I couldn't believe this guy, the arm. I mean, all he needed was, he didn't need very much, right, to be able to, he put the ball right in my numbers. All I had to do was catch it. And he, man, I tell you what, he split a couple of my fingers, but he was probably, and Tom was a different type of quarterback. Tom was smart. Tom would set up a guy, set up DB, James running out, James running out and up, right? Because he know this guy, this DB is going to bite him. He's biting. Okay, I got him now, James. We got him on the hook. And give me an out and up. Boom, boom. I'm gone. Touchdown. John Hofnagel. I knew when John Hofnagel came in the game, I was running deep patterns, deep post corners, go routes, my favorites. So they pretty much were all my favorite. And even Sean Salisbury, you know, I don't put him in that category of those three, but from time to time, he could put it out there for me, and I enjoy playing with him. But I have to say that Brock and Clemens and Huffnagel were by far the great receivers. I had an opportunity to play with, I don't know if you guys remember Eric Hipple. Eric Hipple was a starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Get a chance, Google his name, Eric Hipple, for many, many years. He was my starting quarterback at Utah State University. I also played with a guy by the name of Craig Bradshaw, Terry Bradshaw's younger brother. And Craig threw the ball as hard as Dieter, right? So I had, from college, I was used to playing with guys with strong arms who can throw. They understood, just get the ball to James on a hit screen, get it to him on a deep post or a post corner. And so, yeah, I was very, very fortunate. And you got to remember as well, I got to give credit to the offensive line. You got to give credit to running backs for the protecting the quarterback, and Rick Howes and Joe Poplawski, Jeff Boyd. These guys, man, it was just a pleasure to work with a group of receivers as those guys, Perry Tuttle. Man, I tell you what, I had so much fun, being able to do something that I love doing and being blessed and to be able to win championships and setting records and, just creating a whole bunch of joy for a whole lot of people. I'm just totally blessed.
Yeah, you certainly did. We enjoyed watching you throughout the 80s there and everything. So
thank you.
We're absolutely blessed to have you in Winnipeg. And before you have to go, I just want to ask you one more question. What was it like to raise that Grey Cup for the first time and drink out of it for the first time in the spirit of Grey Cup week? Tell us about that.
Well, I just remember sitting in that locker room and freezing cold. Edmonton, it wasn't even cold anymore. I felt like I was in Tahiti somewhere, right? The warmth just overcame me. The joy, the pure. And not only for me and for our team, but for the province of Manitoba. We understood, the drought, what it was like, somebody please bring me a drink of water, bring some water. Nobody will bring you a drink of water. Finally, you get that drink, and it is not water, it's champagne. Yeah. So it was probably a feeling that I'll never be able to describe. I'll never be able to replicate. It was just an outstanding joy to be standing in that locker room and with a cigar and just it was thank you very much for bringing it up, because again that outweighs the feeling of losing in 1987. But no, it was just a great pleasure and it's just an honor to be able to be a part of that.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, again, we can't thank you enough for joining us. Like who gets to say, in my position, I got to sit down and talk with two Canadian Football League Hall of Famers in, successive weeks. So thank you so much. And on my personal note, as a young Black kid in Winnipeg, you, Willard Reeves, Tony Jones, James West were my first Black idols that I got to look up to. So I can't thank you enough for being such a good example within the community and being such great role models. I appreciate that. I can't even describe how much I appreciate that.
That's outstanding. Thank you very much, Ray, and I really appreciate you guys having me on, and all the best to you. And I'm really glad that you guys is doing what you're doing, right, and reaching a whole lot of people, young men that aspiring to play sports. And when they listen to guys like Wes, myself, and even you guys, what I like about what you guys are doing is you guys grew up in the era, and you're passing that on. Winnipeg is a great sports town, because if they don't hear from anybody, how are they going to know? Right. Yeah. So I think it's important to be able to have you guys to be able to continue to spread the goodness of what we did back in the day, even though it was back in the day. But the story is going to live on forever, just by what you guys and what you're doing. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to relive those memories too, and have you guys come out here and relay your information, because we saw it from one lens as fans, but we didn't know what was going on in the field or in the locker room, or the joys of victory and defeat and all that stuff. So thank you very much for coming on here and letting us know and getting us an insight into those times.
Well, like I said, some stories can be told, and some stories may take a few more years. So I'll be checking you guys out, and if there's anything that I can help you guys out with, please let me know.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And the door
Thank
is always open for you to come back. We'd love to talk some more. And yeah, maybe we'll get into those stories back in the day.
Okay. All the best, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Peace and
All
love
the best to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.